yeah, we're perfectly imperfect. We try to find perfection in this, in the ego, right? And the ego is everything that we see. It's the external, it's our personality, it's our looks, but the soul, the deep, the essence of us is perfect. This is never going to be perfect. This is always going to be imperfect. So it's that almost that duality within oneness. We're perfect already and we're imperfect at the same time. So in spirituality, when we meditate, we connect to that so-called perfect part of us, the part that is love and is whole. We identify more with that. So we relax about the imperfections on the outside. We start to relax when we, maybe gained a couple pounds, maybe my bad hair day, my hair's really oily right now because I haven't had a chance to wash it in a week and a half, whatever it is. We relax because we're connected to something much bigger.
My guest, Kimberly Snyder, is the founder of Solluna, a lifestyle brand dedicated to empowering you to live your true beauty. She is also a 3-time New York Times bestselling author of 5 books, including the Beauty Detoxbook series and Radical Beauty, co-written by Deepak Chopra. She is also a nutritionist, certified yoga teacher, and a spiritual and meditation teacher. An in-demand worldwide speaker, Kimberly also hosts the top-rated Feel Good with Kimberly Snyder podcast. Kimberly has worked with dozens of entertainment industry top celebrities to help them feel their best. A highly sought-out lifestyle and wellness expert, Kimberly has been featured in media outlets including Ellen, The Today Show, The Dr. Oz Show, New York Times, Vogue, Vanity Fair, and so much more. She shares how she embarked on a 3-year solo journey spanning over 50 countries that changed her approach to overall wellness. This exposed her a wide range of health and beauty modalities, conventional and unconventional teachers, and worldviews from different cultures. This experience inspired her life's purpose, which is helping many others as possible tap into love, wholeness, and unique beauty within them. Right. Well, Kimberly, I'm so thankful to have you on just to share this space with you today. I know you're a very busy mom, entrepreneur. So I actually have been I brought them here because I been using your brand for some time now, Solluna. What's that?
It's amazing. I'm so happy to see those products in your hands.
I know. And I've actually been using them for some time now. And I actually just reordered probiotics because I ran out. So thank you for sharing this space with me today. I obviously love your products, but I want to know more about you. That is most important because just learning about you in the last week, I'm like, there's so much more that you share and I didn't know. And I just can't wait to share this with the audience today.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I really love for people to just get to know you. So I would love if you could kind of share your journey in becoming so passionate about the health and wellness space, as I know your story kind of began from your personal struggles and wanting to find a solution. So if you could kind of go into that a little bit.
Sure. I'm someone that struggled a lot with confidence, not feeling good enough, and my external appearance. From when I was a teenager, I grew up in a predominantly Caucasian place in Connecticut, and I'm mixed ethnically. So I always felt weird and ugly and that I didn't fit in. And so that was sort of, the very beginning seed of trying to, seeking, how do I feel good? And so I think like for many of us, we focus externally first, right? So at the time I had, just major digestive issues, lots of bloating, constipation, acne, my hair wouldn't grow. And this followed me through high school. I had some eating disorders. In college, I started partying a lot. So I actually swung the other way. I gained a lot of weight and I had no energy. So that's the background. At the time I was interested in becoming a doctor. So I went into college with a science and math scholarship, a partial one. And then when I got there, I spent time in a hospital one summer and realized that wasn't my path, but I was really always passionate about biology and the body. So anyways, fast forward, college happens. I'm not going to be a doctor. I don't know what I'm going to do. I had interned for a marketing company and they had an office in Sydney. So I went to Australia. I was partying even more. I was feeling more and more low in terms of my energy. And it was at that point I saw a little flyer miracle of miracles, it was in the gym because I didn't have much energy to work out. But I saw this little flyer about learning how to detox. And I didn't know what that meant, but there was something in me that said, hey, go talk to this woman. So it was this nutritionist. And I went in and I said, hey, I've been trying every diet out there, which is true. I'm calorie counting. I'm doing all this stuff. What do I do? And she said to me, how's your digestion? And I said, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about the good stuff. Tell me how to really lose the weight. And she said, it's actually all connected. So that was the first time I had this epiphany, this light bulb went off. And I said, oh, and I started to really put things together. So anyways, long story short, it lit another fire in me to keep learning and to keep healing all these issues inside of me. And that then parlayed into me traveling. I was going to go for a couple weeks on the way back to the United States, but bought an around the world ticket. Long story short, I ended up doing this loop 3 times. So I was out backpacking for over 3 years by myself through over 50 countries. And what's significant is that I was not in the Western world. So I was 18 months in Asia, 7 months or more in Africa, and then South America. And so I had this whole other exposure to what beauty was and what, living, feeling good was, and just having this life that was of freedom. I saw these women that were empowered and not counting calories and not harping on their age. And they were just so expansive. And so that was really the root where my philosophy started, was on the road. So I came back and I moved to New York City, and I went back to nutrition school, and I started teaching yoga and had all these teachers, but that trip was really the beginning.
I love that you share that, because I believe travel teaches us so much. And what I find so interesting is that one thing you mentioned, that you were in the Eastern world opposed to the Western world, because there's so many, like, the Western world kind of bandages things up, and you had all these symptoms per se of what was going on inside of you, but you wanted to get to the root cause. Like, why am I so bloated? Why can't I digest? Why can't I go to the bathroom? All this stuff. I completely relate to that. That was kind of my journey. So I really share the empathy with that, because that was one of my things. I'm like, I was breaking out all the time, couldn't go to the bathroom. I remember it was so bad once that I couldn't go to the bathroom, I think, for a week, which is really bad. And I got this cyst on my chin, the size of like a golf ball. And I remember I went into a dermatologist to get it injected with cortisone, because it was just, nothing would bring it down, but it was because of that. I couldn't go to the bathroom. So all these toxins were coming out of my face, which, as you said, you had acne. So what I think is just great that you learned that there's much more to, and this is, I don't know how many years ago this was when you heard the word detox, because it's a common word today, but back then it wasn't as common. Am I correct?
Yeah. So now it's like, sometimes I'm out of time and space. It's 2021. So my first book came out 10 years ago. So
Wow.
I was backpacking, and then I came back and I want to share all this stuff. So yeah, it's the 10-year anniversary of the Beauty Detox Solution. And I got to tell you, the journey keeps expanding. So for now, it started with food, but then I kept going deeper. There's a lot more to these issues than just what we're eating. There's the role of the mind and the stress and the holding things in, and the stories we tell ourselves. So like you were saying, in your case, the constipation manifested outwardly. And I find too, our skin is so affected by our emotional state, by our mental health, by the way we handle stress, by, again, all these things. So that then led to my, we could talk about that now or later, my 4 cornerstone philosophy.
Yes.
And I started working with clients, and everything grew from that.
Yeah, I definitely want to jump into that. But first I want to ask, what did you find the main difference between the Eastern and Western world? And I kind of want to pull this out because I think it's fascinating. I'll share one example. I interviewed somebody about the lymphatic system. We don't hear about the lymphatic system that much in the Western world, but it is actually number 1 in the Eastern world, to my understanding. So the only time we really hear about in the Western world is when cancer is brought up. It's so interesting, so I'm curious, what did you find most different about the two?
Well, it's interesting you bring up the lymphatic system. For me, the system that really stood out that was discussed is, primarily in India, which is where a lot of my teachings, a lot of my philosophy comes from as a student of yoga and Ayurveda, and Paramahansa Yogananda, who's my yoga guru. There's a lot of talk about the nervous system, actually, because the nervous system is our connection between us and the so-called outside world. And it's the way that we take in information. So it's raining. The rain isn't the stress, but if we say, oh, it's raining, it sucks. It's our perception. And the nervous system in turn affects our endocrine system and our immune system and so many other cardiovascular respiratory system. But I would say the main overall difference, and this is a big part of my philosophy, is in the West, we attach so many labels to ourselves that are very finite. And a big, huge barrel of that has to do with numbers. Think about it. We define ourselves by how much we weigh, what our salary is, how many followers we have, our age, right? There's so many labels. And when I started traveling, I use this word freedom. There was just women that were just who they were, and they were in their bodies, and they were, members of the community, the tribes. I saw some really remote areas in Mongolia and the outer reaches of Fiji and the Philippines. So I really saw, what I would call uncorrupted society, where these labels, especially those attached to numbers, wasn't part of the daily discussion. And it certainly wasn't part of the way that many people define themselves. And that really struck me. So from the beginning, my, part of my philosophy is getting rid of numbers. So I went from being an avid calorie counter, I tried every diet out there, paleo, high protein, low carb, everything. And then I started to realize that when we let go of numbers, in the words of T. Colin Campbell, your body does the math. If you focus on, for instance, easily digestible foods, food combining, whole foods, you don't need to count. So I threw out my scale. I stopped all that. My body came back to balance. My body got really fit. And then, just numbers in general don't really define me. So that was a huge lesson. And I found that without all these constraints, my body and my energy really opened up. So that's something that I've really been teaching since that first book.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know you said you had an eating disorder growing up, and then also it switched when you went to college, actually kind of swung the other way.
Totally.
So what was the big transition you made? Was it this mental game switch that you're just talking about that brought you more aligned with the way your body should feel naturally?
Well, I think it was, if you look at it either way, I was trying to control things with food, right? Like when I was trying to be skinny, I was anorexic, but then I became bulimic because I was running and I was so hungry, I would eat, then I would feel guilty. And I wasn't feeling good about myself. So it was like, gotta be skinnier, gotta be skinnier. And then when I swung the other way, I was still trying to feel good. I wasn't so in touch with myself. So I became, again, there's people, we can drink and enjoy things, but I was really partying. So either way, I was using food, substances as a Band-Aid to sort of just placate this feeling inside of me that I didn't feel good about myself. So it wasn't until I started to connect in and work from that place and, real love, real self-acceptance, that I came towards balance and used food when I was hungry for fuel instead of for trying to shift my mood or, guilt, something that was so guilt-ridden because it would make me fat. And same thing with alcohol and all these other things in my life.
Yeah.
It's still a journey.
Yeah. Well, I love that you talk about the whole true acceptance of ourself. I think that, which I would love if you could share your 4 cornerstones, as you mentioned, because I know that is the umbrella into truly accepting yourself, your truly authentic self. So what are the 4 cornerstones?
So the 4 cornerstones are food, body, emotional well-being, and spiritual growth. And when I started to put language to this, but I realized that along the way, this is how I was working with all these clients and all these people. And in general, I became known initially as a nutritionist because food is tangible and we can pick it up and we can see it, we can smell it, we can eat it. But our power really does lie in our wholeness. We are whole, multidimensional beings. So if we only focus on one little aspect, we'll always feel like something's missing. We'll feel this huge void. So food, it's obvious. It's how we eat, the food we put into our body. Body means we're embodied. We're meant to be having an experience in our body. And you wouldn't imagine how many people say to me, I don't know what I'm supposed to eat. I don't know how to take care of my body because we've disconnected. So body is everything other than food, sleep, exercise, supplements we take, body care. Emotional well-being. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Then we move to the parts we can't see. This is our mental health, our emotional well-being. And this is the part that I think a lot of us don't adequately digest our feelings. So they get pushed down. We develop reactions. We develop aversion. Sometimes we don't like someone. We don't know what it is. We create patterns. We get really angry. We feel inward. So this is where community journaling, that's why I developed something called our Solluna circle, which is our, online women's circle, which is amazing. And then there's spiritual growth. And I define that as just connecting to our soul, to the essence inside of us, to our true voice. So for me, that's meditation, being in nature, stillness, silence. And so what I find is if we don't nurture all of the cornerstones, we tend to obsess over one or two of them. So when I had my eating disorders, I wasn't in touch with my feelings. I wasn't in touch with myself, spiritually, emotionally. So I fixated on food. Like, this is what's going to fix it. And this is so common today in the wellness world, where for what, wellness for people is, this is how much I exercise, this is how much I eat, but there's still so much ignoring of the parts that we don't see. Again, the emotional, mental, spiritual. And I have found, working with hundreds, thousands of people, that we really need to nurture all of them to feel our best, to feel our power, to feel our beauty, to feel self-love, to feel confidence, all these things that we're chasing. You can make your body as beautiful and muscular and toned as possible, but you're still going to feel empty. You're still going to not really love yourself unless we look at all of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so if I could touch on each area a little bit. So the food aspect, I know that you're plant-based and you've been plant-based for, I believe, 12 years, if I read correctly.
12 years now, yeah. 13 years this year.
And even you feed your son, or your children are plant-based as well. Is that correct?
Yes, both of them. I have a 4-year-old, and the baby now is 8 months, and they've been, plant-based since conception, basically.
Wow.
And
well, I know you also, the clients you work with, you don't necessarily insist everybody be plant-based, and you kind of individually work with each client. But what is the reason that you would gear somebody to be plant-based, or what is the reason you'll gear somebody to, have more flexibility with that?
Yeah, so my philosophy has always been, it's not all or nothing. So actually very few of my clients were fully plant-based. And, I have a whole range of my readers. I say, it doesn't have to be all, but I encourage people to eat more plant-based foods. And the reasons are because only plant-based foods have fiber, which fills us up naturally and cleans us out. We're meant to be this channel, like a waterfall. I say, imagine your beautiful waterfall where you're taking in nutrition, you're assimilating it, and then you're expelling what you don't need anymore. And you compare that in nature to a stagnant pond. So when you eat really heavy, dense foods, there's so much discussion about this. I could go on and on, but in the worlds of high protein, high fat, it is true. Like, you can lose weight for a time, you can feel good for a time, but I believe that if you keep eating really heavy over time, there's less prana in the body. It clogs you up and it ages you much faster. So the reasons for being more plant-based is that our GI tracts, our digestive systems, our anatomy, if you look in nature, there's something in science called biomimicry, where we look at similar species and we look at their ideal diets. And we have a long involved GI tract, and our colon and our small intestines are very, what I call to my clients, squiggly wiggly. They go like this. Whereas if you look at carnivorous animal, a tiger and a lion, their GI tracts are actually quite short and straight. Because after digesting those materials, you want to expel them from the body. Otherwise, in a hot mammalian body temperature, which is almost 100 degrees, the proteins can start to putrefy, and a lot of acids and waste can start to bioaccumulate, and that very much causes aging. But actually, the initial reason I became more plant-based was because of, you mentioned the trip, and the country that had the most impact on my philosophy was India. I went on to study yoga I'm a student of yoga, student of Ayurveda, and it was for the energy reasons. Pretty much every yoga master, every major teacher and guru says the same thing: to be vegetarian. So imagine that, this whole system. And yes, there's the ahimsa part, there's the compassion part, but also energy is energy. It doesn't go away. It changes form. And it's interesting that Einstein actually became a vegetarian himself when he understood this.
I didn't know that.
He did. So imagine you're putting these animals that have been killed and have suffered to an extent, even if it's, humane or whatever, they still don't want to die, you could say. And then you're putting that into your body. And so there's a heaviness with that can affect your meditations. So that was one of the reasons. Another reason is the environmental impact. And there's a saying in Ayurveda, so is the micro as is the macro. So if something's truly the best for us, it should be truly the best for the society, the outer circles, and the whole world. And when you're plant-based, it's a lighter load. That so much of the deforestation and the tearing down of the rainforest has to do with free range cattle. So when people say, I'm not going to eat factory farm meat, I'm going to eat, the grass fed, the free range. Well, guess what? That unfortunately needs space for that grass, for that cattle. So they are tearing down trees and all these animals are losing their habitats. The single biggest cause of rainforest destruction. So when I started to learn more and more about all of these reasons, I just said, we don't need meat. There's all these other alternatives today. And so that for all these reasons.
Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit about the fiber. And I think that is one thing for the digestion is fiber is so critical to get things moving. And I remember that was through my experience. I was doing, as you mentioned, you did all these diets. And I think probably a lot of us could relate to this, especially women. So I remember doing the low carb diet, right? And I wasn't getting
not good for women.
It's not good. Really, I mean, I'm not going to, go into too much information, but it messed up my digestion big time. And it was my lesson that I needed to learn. Like I needed grains work for me, like brown rice, especially. I need that fiber to get things going. So I'm very mindful of that. I do eat meat myself, but I try to make sure it is definitely grass-fed. I try to fill up my plate way more with veggies than the actual meat. So I know I do believe there's not one thing perfect for everybody. It's also being very in tune with your body and what works for you. So for example, I know the brown rice digests really well. And so it's the go-to fiber for me. Or beans I don't digest well, like those cause more gas. So I think it's very much being in tune with your body. So what do you think about that?
I think everybody's body is different. And so there isn't one perfect diet for everyone. But I will say that within mostly plant-based, there is many different ways. You can be keto plant-based. You could even be, high protein plant-based. You can be whatever. I will say the work of Dan Buettner is really interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he discovered something called the blue zones, which are the areas in the world where the people are the healthiest and live the longest. And this was backed up with research. He got a grant from Harvard, and it was, he researched this for years and years. And he found 5 true blue zones, one in Japan and Okinawa, one in Costa Rica, one in Greece.
In Italy, right?
And one in Italy, that's right. And one actually here in Loma, California. And what was interesting, so these are very diverse. We can talk about all the different continents, and they were all 95% or above plant-based. Now, they ate meat, but it was like, less than 5% of their diet. It was, here's a wedding, we're going to celebrate with some meat, or it's a little part, through the week or through the month. Primarily they're eating. And I said, well, are they eating grains? Because there's all this discussion now about grains being evil.
Right.
And he said, not only are they eating grains every day, they were eating grains pretty much every meal. So I thought that was really interesting, whether it's rice, which I do eat a lot of, or, in Okinawa, one of the main forms of, one of their main foods are these purple tubers, like they're kind of sweet potatoes. And, just so on and so forth. And the sourdough bread, that's part of these cultures where a lot of the gluten is pre-digested by the starter culture. So anyways, we don't go too much about it, but I will say that
there's a lot about it.
a lot about it. And so I think it's up to us to say, hey, there's all this evidence out there for so many reasons that we don't really need to eat meat. But if you think your body feels better eating meat, you don't have to eat it every meal. You don't have to eat huge amounts. These healthiest cultures some of them eat some are fully plant-based, but they eat some, but it's a small amount, right? So, we can leave it at that.
Yeah, and I know you're a fruit lover, and there's all these diets that say fruit is bad, all these sugars. So, what's your take on fruit? And I also know that I remember back in the day, I read, I don't know if it was part of the clean diet or what it was, but or sorry, it was a blood type diet and food combining diet that I read. These were some of the things I studied, different things. And the food combining I thought was really fascinating. And one of the things they say about fruit is that you should not eat it with other foods except for berries, possibly. But what's your whole philosophy on fruit? Because people tend to want to avoid it, but there's lots of benefits.
Yeah, I think people avoid it when they're in that mindset of, thinking about dieting and this diet tells me not to eat fruit. If we didn't have these, the culture that we live in the media, again, when I saw it, I was backpacking. Naturally, as humans, we're going to eat fruit because our fingers are designed like primates to pick fruit off a tree or, a bush, and we're attracted to it. The sweet taste of fruit is something that satiates us. And it's according to Ayurveda, sweetness is madhura, is an important taste to feel satisfied. So I think we've become really distorted in our society. Fruit in and of itself is a complete nutritional package with fiber, with nutrients, antioxidants, vitamins. It's beautiful. Now, when we are working to rebalance our system because of imbalance, because we've eaten, maybe less than perfect foods like all of us, there may be a reset period. People may have their guts are compromised, or you may have something like candida, which is something that I had. So for a year, I had to reset and have no sugar at all. And that included fruit. And then I had to repair my gut. I took the SBO probiotics, the kind that we manufacture at Solluna. I cut sugar. There are many, many things I talked about in my first book. But a healthy body should be able to handle healthy, natural foods. So after that reset period, I was able to handle fruit and not get bloated. But I do eat it on an empty stomach. I don't combine it with, protein or other heavier foods. And that's the way to eat fruit so it digests more quickly. So if you're in a reset period, you could try, non-sweet fruit or just berries, low sugar fruit, or acai, which doesn't have any sugar at all. But over time, eating whole fruits is amazing and definitely one of the most beautifying foods. I have a high fruit diet. So fruit is a big part of my daily diet. Now, after I reset.
Yeah, so that's an important thing to mention, that if somebody is doing a cleanse per se to kind of restart or reboot their digestion or just, set a new plan for themselves, then they could eliminate the certain things like the gluten, the dairy, the sugar, or whatnot. But then when you are, starting a new lifestyle plan, don't be afraid of entering or eating fruit but separating it from other foods you recommend.
Right. Correct. So yeah, all of this falls into the food category, which, when I started off, my first two books were very food focused. And then I realized people get so obsessed with food. It is a tiny part of the puzzle. It actually is. And I can say this from experience. I can say this from working with thousands of people. Get your food in a pretty good place and focus on the other cornerstones. Because just like this conversation, otherwise you keep going into food. It's like, like you're banging your head on the wall. Food is not the only answer.
Totally. So let's move out of that, because I know that one of those things you talk about is the cause of bloating. And part of that is not to do with food. So can you go into why certain people have tremendous amount of constipation or bloating?
Yes. So everything is so interconnected. I don't even, sometimes I hear this term, the mind-body connection. And I think, I work with words a lot as a writer, and I say it's not technically true in a way, because connection means like two separate things that you put and they're fused in different areas. But actually I think of it just one, it's one loophole. And so my last book, which is called Recipes for Your Perfectly Imperfect Life, I found this incredible research about bloating and inflammation specifically related to our thoughts and our mind. So think about it. For example, what is bloating? It means something isn't passing through. So it ends up being caught and it starts festering there, putrefying, fermenting, and then it starts releasing gases and you start to feel wider and wider and wider. So think about our thoughts. If you don't let something go, let's say it's anger at someone or resentment, or maybe anger at yourself, or maybe body shame, and you just keep this repeated circular thought, it's like a bloated thought. And there's an energy to that. And it creates stress. And what that does is it actually, the gut brain axis doesn't just go up, like your gut affects your neurotransmitters, it also goes down. So your mind starts to affect what's in your belly and your digestion. And just like these bloated thoughts, it can actually lead to bloating, holding on. Also, when you're stressed and you're tense, your body will pull blood flow and energy out of your GI tract because it thinks that there's some sort of emergency or something going on. And so your digestion, either way, it's going to slow down. And that slowing down is a huge contributor to bloating. It's just getting stuck there. We don't want the food to sit in our stomach. We want it to get to the top of our small intestine and into the gut. So on top of the small intestine is something called your duodenum. And it's at this place that the body starts to take the villi, the hairs, and pull nutrition in. Otherwise, it just starts to rot in your gut, and then you start to feel bloated and stuck. And then your mind, you feel stuck. So it's this energy of stuckness. And same thing with inflammation. Inflammation, we know, is a precursor to pretty much every illness. And it's also a precursor to accelerated aging. If you have a lot of anger or anxiety or sadness or grief, or you're holding on to these feelings, it has an effect on your hormones. It has an effect on, think about it, like just the way that you take in sugar. Yeah, if you have a lot of anger, it creates acid in your system, and that's going to inflame your body. And that's also going to create wrinkles and all these things that we don't want. So as I started to study this and witness this in clients and myself and people around me, I started, oh my gosh, because I've had people, it's very easy. Like you can even see when you start to talk about food, you're like, oh, there's all these questions because I can see it and it's tangible. And it becomes almost like, Carl Jung talks about the shadow. We focus on this one cornerstone because it's easier. It's less painful than looking at some of the other stuff. But I promise you, when we start to look at what's under the hood, the emotional part, we start to process that and let that through, that will open up your body in ways that food never can. That will open up your energy. When you let go of resentment, for instance, that's like letting go of a block. And that block can block love. It blocks joy. It blocks peace. It can block your GI tract. So all these things we hold on to, we got to look at them and let them go. And that will make a huge difference. And, the things that we see, our skin, you will look younger, you will lose weight easier. I can't tell you how many people I have. There's one client, and I won't say his name. He's a famous actor. And I was his literally 14th nutritionist. And I was the first person to talk to him beyond food, to get into his feelings and to help him process some of this stuff. And when he started to do that, he lost a lot of weight in 7 months, because you're holding on to things. Fat is protective. Fat lines the myelin sheaths in our nervous system. Fat keeps us warm. Fat can subconsciously create a layer between us and that abusive boyfriend, or the situation we don't like at work, or stress we feel about not loving ourselves, so the world doesn't feel safe. So for many, many reasons, we hold on to fat. And when we start digesting some of these mental, emotional, psychological things, it's amazing. I've seen it so many times, love. And in myself, the body will let go of the excess.
Amazing. So what would be like the process to begin to let go of these emotions, the frustration, whatever weight is on your shoulders? How would you put somebody through it? I know, in simplified version of how you put somebody through it.
Yeah, so it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And I will say that community is a really important part of this. So this is one of the reasons I created the Solluna circle on our app, because I was doing these circles in person. It started off with my friends, and then I was leading them in, publicly, and then it was just growing and growing and growing. And there's something about speaking our truth and being witnessed. So the one thing about the circle is nobody gives advice. So we're not being told what to do. It's amazing to just let it out and be witnessed in a space without judgment, which is very rare in our society. And it's like when you have a zit, right? it comes up to the surface. It's trying to get out. And finally it will work itself out. But if it's pushed down, it may, become cystic acne, or maybe it's just festering there. We let things up, right? So letting things out is really important. And for me, that's distinguishing between thoughts and feelings is the first step I would tell someone. A thought is a construct. We can say, oh, she was so mean. She shouldn't have done that. She is not my friend anymore. It's like all these thoughts. Let that go for a second and just tune into your body, right? Second cornerstone. So many people are disconnected from their body. What are the sensations in your body? What are you feeling? Sometimes it's like, oh, a heaviness in your gut. For me, it's a lot in my throat. Like I'll feel this hollowness that goes into my heart. Like feel the sensation and don't label it. You don't have to say, oh, there's anger or there's this. Just feel it. That's your body digesting that feeling. Feelings literally get encrypted into our body, and it will continue to cause bloating and acne and all these things. So you let it come up and you feel it, which psychologist Dr. David Hawkins says, if you feel it, it will only last up to about 10 minutes. So you let this pain be felt, and then you'll feel it lighter and lighter. And deeper things, like when I lost my mom a couple of years ago, it was deep grief. It happens time and time again, but eventually you get to the bottom of the well. And then you've digested that experience and it's not going to control you anymore. So that's very powerful, is feeling your feelings, which as a society, we distract, we turn on Netflix, right? We call our friend, we bitch about what a, effer this person is. We do whatever, to distract it. But instead, if we sit back and feel, then we can come to a calm place and then decide what action to take, or sometimes there's no action, but we're not controlled by that incident anymore. It's really powerful.
Yeah. And I think part of that is the letting go. And I know you talk about this in your book, Perfectly Imperfect Life. Letting go is a very hard thing. And I think that has to do with everything we're talking about, letting go of this idea of this perfect body, or letting go of this diet needs to be this way, or I have to avoid this. And, talk about how you handle, especially when I know your mom's passing, which was very difficult, how you let go of, that she wasn't, like the accepting that she wasn't here anymore, that her passing, was meant to be per se, or, whatever it may be. How did you let go of that?
So I use this process that I mentioned to you, which is every time the grief came up, and it was waves, right? So it would be intense. And then, I'd be sitting there nursing my son or something, and then it would come back, or just random time be driving in the car. So whenever that happened, instead of pushing it down, I would create a space, I'd hand over the baby, or I'd pull over, and I would let the feelings come up. It was being metabolized. Instead of thinking the thoughts, oh my God, this is just god awful. She'll never help me raise my son. I won't get to hug her, da, da, da. I just felt the feelings, and it really started to work through my body, almost like a splinter. And I think we're not taught this, like as a culture. And I saw this a lot when I was traveling, particularly as a circle. My first circle I witnessed was in Fiji with the elders in the society, the circle of children. And I said, hey, what's going on there? And they said that elder is teaching the children how to pick a life partner. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so tribal. This is so amazing. So in other cultures, we're taught about feelings and processing, but here in our society, it's like, put on a happy face, say you're fine. And then it just starts to collapse because we're human. We're divine and we're human. So that's been a huge thing. And then the other big thing I would say, all the examples that you said about, comparing ourselves or going through this, or, what's everybody doing? The biggest thing I learned from that, and the biggest thing I learned in this journey as it continues, is self-reliance, which means no matter what, when we're letting go of like, this person has to like me, or this, I thought this was going to be my husband and he dumped me, or, my mom passed away, all these things, it's still not here. So this is the spiritual growth part, and this is the hard lesson, but it's a beautiful lesson. When you realize that all you really need is inside of you, because you are a drop of consciousness and we're all connected, but we're all unique at the same time. Each of us is a unique expression. So when you connect to that with your meditations and you sit there and you feel it, it starts to peel away all this debilitating She has more followers. She's skinnier than me. Her business is bigger than mine. I should be married by now and have 10 kids. You start to say, but that's not my journey. I have me. I can give myself comfort and security. I can trust myself. And so you start to go inward and inward. And what happens is you become so much more able to stand for other people too. You give more love. You can be there more because you're not trying to just get things. You realize you already have it. And that is something we can all develop. And we become like a beacon. We become grounded and we can give more. We can serve more. And we also serve ourselves. But it's a big lesson because in our society, love, like you said, it's always like, I need this product. I need this person to like me. I need to outside. And you're like, actually, as I go through and I feel and I connect, I don't need so much. I really don't need anything outside of me. I love to connect with the community, but I do it out of free choice, not because I need it. I need people to like me.
Love that. Yeah. That's
Very
so
freeing.
valuable. So valuable.
Everything.
Yeah. And I think you use this terminology, the and mentality, which I think has to do with this. Like it's not like I am this thing only or that thing only, or I have to have this thing only. It's the and mentality. What do you describe as the and mentality?
So the and mentality has to do with, for me, it came up, this idea that came up when I was dealing with a lot of my own shame. And here's another deep thing that affects our digestion. And it affects, you're talking about holding on and letting go. We can be angry at someone, we can have resentments for other people, but the biggest thing we need to let go of is all the hatred and the anger we have at ourselves, all the things we've done. We need to separate the behavior from the humanness. Like, we are human and we are divine and we are good. Everybody is good in their core, but we've all done stuff, right? Like, maybe you lied or you cheated on a test or you cheated on your boyfriend or you did whatever. And women especially hold on to so much shame. So the and philosophy is, I am a good person and I don't always act the best. And I yelled at my dad and I was super mean to my roommate. And yeah, I talked shit about my friend and it got back to her. So the and is when we can look at it all and say, you know what? I try to be healthy and sometimes I have a pint of ice cream.
Perfectly imperfect.
Perfectly imperfect. And when we do that, look at this, love. It's like, I'm perfect. I'm the best person. It's like my shoulders are up. I'm tense. It's like walking on a tightrope. When we're ants, we relax and we say, you know what? I'm on this journey and it's not all so serious. I'm doing my best and I mess up. And so does everybody else. So again, it increases this feeling of oneness and unity within ourselves. And then we connect more to other people. Because instead of so much judgment, like, oh, look at how she's acting, she's always seeking attention, we just say, oh, she's on her journey too. So we just relax all this judgment and it realizes that everything is part of the journey. And it creates less separation within ourselves and again with others. And it really opens up your life. It opens you up. And remember, openness is the space for abundance. Openness is the space for more money, more love, more opportunities coming to you. The more open we are, we don't close down. So it has been a transformative thing for me to realize. I beat myself up so much. I am a recovering perfectionist. I was trying to be as skinny as possible. I did have all these eating disorders. I was obsessed with being the top 10 in my class. My first books, I was obsessed with, sales and making the New York Times list for the first time and all these different things. And then you realize, breathe and be. And that's actually the more powerful place to come at things.
Beautiful.
And
beautifully well said.
All part of it.
I love that. And I know you're really big on your morning routine. I would love if you could kind of share your morning routine, because I know that really sets up your day and has you really, be connected to yourself as you enter your day. So what do you do in your morning routine?
So the morning routine does hit on all four of the cornerstones that I mentioned earlier. So we're starting the day in a place of power and a place of wholeness. So the first thing that I do is I sit up and, sometimes it'll change as my kids get older, but even when I'm nursing and playing around, the very first thing I do is I meditate. I lift my spine. I get into my body. And when we breathe into our body and when we connect with ourselves, it does help with food cravings for the rest of the day. It does set your energy. It keeps, even when things go crazy, it means we're here first. And everything is seconds. We don't go on social media right away. You don't want to scroll on Instagram. Oh gosh, look at what's happening here and here and here. We're already pulled outside. So first meditate. Then I journal. I always have my journal here with me. I journal for a couple minutes. I set my intention for the day. And I also think of things to let go of. I did this today. Like if I can see, oh, there's still rigidity about this. I'm annoyed about, you know, the way this communication happened with my team, whatever. I just think of the things to let go of. So I start, it's almost like pooping. Emotionally, you clear it so you have more energy. Then I go down into my kitchen and I take 2 SBO Solluna probiotics that you mentioned you have. That is the body part. We need good gut health. Every day we need to replenish and rebalance because that affects everything from immunity, energy, digestion, skin health, everything, right? Our brain focus, clarity. Then I drink hot water with lemon to start on an up because the lemon is so amazing and rejuvenative to our liver, which is our main fat burning organ, our main detoxifying organ. We just want to have all that vitamin C in our body. It's right from nature. It's like lemons to me is like sunlight. Yeah, you want to put that sun in your body. And then I drink our glowing green smoothie, which is, you know, we talked about fiber. It's if you're into intermittent fasting as well, it's a little bit of that because it doesn't have concentrated fat and protein, but it's packed with so many beauty nutrients and nutrition and fiber that it stabilizes your blood sugar levels and it just makes you feel so much energy. So that's the core of the morning. Then, you know, half an hour later, I'm pretty hungry these days with the babies and all. So I do eat a big wrap usually, you know, I eat different things, but my wrap usually has avocado and hummus and sprouts and tomato. Usually we do more after that, but that's the core routine to start with.
I love it. I do. Obviously I integrate all those things and it's definitely, I am so big on my morning routine. It really sets up your day and it's time for yourself to really honor your time, yourself, to fill your cup up before you give to others throughout the day. So it's so essential.
It's like, it's really starting the, like, you know, when you, like a wave goes through, you're starting the pattern of the wave and you can't get it back. Like, let's say you don't have a morning routine and you're like, oh, around noon, I'm going to try to like reset here. It's so much has already been set in motion. In yoga, you know, we go to this altered state of consciousness when we sleep. So in a sense, you're dying and being reborn every morning. It's not just New Year's. So every time when you wake up, it's an opportunity to reset your whole energy, to be reborn.
Yeah, it's a gift. Absolutely. Well, I would love actually, what is the meaning of Solluna?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. So Solluna means the sun and the moon. Sol is the sun and Luna is the moon. So it's about the complete.
I should have known that.
But really, like, it's so perfect that you just said the ant. It's, we are everything. We are whole. We are, you know, the sun and the moon, the cycles in between. We're not just the, you know, the pretty, happy, you know, very neat, perfect home part that we put on social media sometimes. We're the messy parts of us, the part that's becoming, the parts that's integrating ourselves. And, you know, we cry and we feel emotions and we can be really mean and we can be really bitchy and we can have wounds and pain, but we're whole and there's no shame. We are who we are. So that's what Solluna means. It means we just are who we are.
Beautiful. And I when I saw the title of your book, your last book, Perfectly Imperfect Life, I actually, a long time ago, I think it was about 10 years ago when I was a fashion designer, this designer I worked for, she named her t-shirt line Perfectly Imperfect. I'm like, that is just such a brilliant name. I just love those words combined because we are perfectly imperfect and we don't need to be, the idea of perfect is never something we should try to hold on to or try to obtain, because perfectionism is actually really negative in some way. You know, it always, we can never be perfect, right? So it's like we're searching for things we can't absolutely obtain.
Well, the funny thing is it's yeah, we're perfectly imperfect. We try to find perfection in the ego, right? And the ego is everything that we see. It's the external, it's our personality, it's our looks, but the soul, the deep, the you know, the essence of us is perfect. This is never going to be perfect This is always going to be
Right.
imperfect. So it's that almost that duality within oneness. We're perfect already and we're imperfect at the same time. So in
Exactly.
spirituality, when we meditate, we connect to that so-called perfect part of us, the part that is love and is whole. We identify more with that. So we relax about the imperfections on the outside. We start to relax when we, maybe gained a couple pounds, maybe my bad hair day, my hair's really oily right now because I haven't had a chance to wash it in a week and a half, whatever it is. We relax because we're connected to something much bigger.
Yes, absolutely. And I know at the end of your book, you have this feel good movement. What is
Yeah.
the feel good movement?
So again, my podcast is called the Feel Good Podcast, the Feel Good Supplements. So feeling good to me is about being deeply connected to yourself. And we speak about this innermost part of us. When we're disconnected, it doesn't feel good. Then we start to think, oh my God, I'm aging and my whole worth is in my face or in my looks. So who am I? I'm really suffering here. Or my whole worth is this job, or my whole worth is this relationship. Feeling good means we connect to the stable, loving, creative, intelligent part inside of us, and that can never be taken away, and that can never go away. So all the cornerstones, the way that we eat, the way that we take care of our body, our temple, the way that we process our emotions, the way that we connect spiritually, it's all to feel that connection. And when we do that, the ironic part is, like I said, our weight naturally balances in a much easier way. Our skin looks better than ever. We start to attract more opportunities. We have more abundance without focusing, like hyper focusing on it. And that's one of the secrets of yoga is, the inner part, when we connect here, everything on the outside starts to work better. So feel good is about that inner connection.
I love that. And then I know you, it's so beautiful. I love how you speak about it too. It's so elegant. But the other thing you mentioned before we started recording, you have a sixth book
Yes.
you are bringing to the market soon. What is this? Can you share a little bit what this book is? Another baby being birthed?
Yes, it is. It's coming out in January. So we're, in the editing stage. It's in the termination stage. But I will say this is, when I write a book, I wait for, spirit to say this needs to come through. Spirit told me this needed to come through when I was about 34 weeks pregnant with my second son. And I was, I just had this idea. I had this feeling. It was so strong. This is the book idea. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm about to give birth, but you can't ignore passion, right? You can't ignore that feeling. So then I texted Deepak Chopra, who is my co-author on 2 books ago, Radical Beauty. And I said, Deepak, I had this idea. And I told him what it was. And he said, oh, it'd be perfect for Hay House. This third, I've been with Random House for my other books, this other publisher. And so he connected me to the president and he said, well, what's your book about? So I told him the idea and he said, let's have a Zoom call. So anyways, we had a Zoom call and I wrote a chapter, sample chapter, and we had a second Zoom call and they bought it just like that. It was the easiest flow. And so then I gave birth. And then after, the 40 sacred days, sometime after that, I started writing. So this book has felt like, even in the middle of life, maybe, inconvenient time. I have a newborn, I have a 4-year-old, the pandemic's going on, my 4-year-old's on preschool, all this stuff. I'm running a business. It had to come through me. And I will say this book is a very practical guide for anyone who's never felt enough, how to truly create the life of your dreams, how to truly tap into your confidence, to expand your vitality and your energy, your ability to be a warrior, your ability to create, and your ability to create infinite abundance. So it's really the first time I've given my handbook. I've talked about, here's my food philosophy and here's my yoga, here's this, but this is everything. And I think definitely it is my most powerful book. I'm giving it all here.
I love it. Oh my gosh, that's exciting. We have to wait till January, but I can't wait to see it come to life. I already know it's going to be just beautifully delivered because you could tell you put so much passion and thought into everything you speak about, and how you articulate it. It's just beautiful. So I'm so excited for you. Well, if you were to leave one piece of advice that you haven't shared yet, what would it be?
Oof, that's a really, really big one. Oh my gosh. I keep going back to this idea of going inward instead of going outward. And I guess the biggest piece of advice is, we hear about, inner beauty. Beauty inside out is one of the things that I've talked about a lot. Like everything starts on the inside. So I would say if you have any frustration in your life right now, or you're trying to make your life better, which is pretty much all of us, put more energy on the inside instead of trying to control the outside, and the outside will work better. So pick one simple step in each of the cornerstones. One thing you're going to do for your diet. Maybe it's take the digestive enzymes before you eat, which is very powerful. But you are not what you eat. You are what you digest. So the enzymes help you extract more nutrients from your food, right? So maybe it's the Solluna enzymes, or maybe it's starting with that hot water with lemon. Something
just
very
right here, by the way.
Yes. The body wise, maybe I'm going to go on a walk every day, which is amazing right now for, stress. The gyms are closed, like whatever. Pick one step there. Emotionally, maybe I'm going to journal for 5 minutes a day, or I'm going to, feel my feeling, whatever it is, for 5 minutes. And then spiritually, I'm going to take one step towards a meditation practice or stillness, or I'm going to go in nature, whatever it is. So I would say focus on the inside, pick one small step in each of the 4 cornerstones, and watch what happens in your outside world. We are so used to focusing more on the outside and trying to get things to come in and pull things in. And, my single friends, maybe it's more of a better profile. Maybe it's more dating apps. Maybe it's all this stuff. Focus inside, the opposite, and watch the outside world change.
It's so true. And I actually, when I suggest to people for their morning routine, is always pick something. I like to say, don't just pick one, pick 2, because I believe you could definitely at least accomplish 2 in each of those cornerstones, the mind, body, and spirit, or soul, whichever you want to call it, that you should touch at least 2 of those things every morning in your routine. And it's easy to obtain. It's just creating the ritual or the routine and doing it over and over.
And I would say, if the one, again, people focus on food because it's physical, but if you would say the most important one, quote unquote, it is the spiritual part, because everything starts from this interconnection. So even if it's like short, 1 minute, 3 minutes, just put one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, and just breathe and go inward and just feel your breath, feel your power, and then put your hands together and just take a moment for gratitude. Like that could be the beginning of your meditation practice, but it does center you, and it is powerful. And it's an energy it's a seed you're planting of connecting into your power, and it will start to change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kimberly, this has been such an honor, and I want people to obviously follow you, find out more about your products. Not only do you have supplements, I know you have a skincare line, which I haven't had the chance to try yet, but I love your products. Like I said, I just placed a reorder. So where can people most find you and find out more about your products?
Thank you, my love. Yeah, we have the products. We have our whole Solluna app now with our circle on it, which is amazing. It's women that gather together every month, and every day we have tips. And I used to be on Instagram more, but now I'm on that feed because it's a whole community that we chat every day. We also have online courses too. It's part of meditations. So you can find everything on mysolluna.com, SOLLUNA.com. Our website is sort of the hub. And if you are on Instagram, I'm at _ Kimberly Snyder. And our Feel Good podcast, which we'll have to have you on too.
Yes. Oh, that would be such an honor. And I was going to mention, is it okay I share with everybody in the show notes your Glow morning smoothie?
Sure. The recipe? Smoothie. Yeah, you can get the recipe from Casey or Caitlin, whoever you're in touch with.
Awesome. Yeah, I was actually going to make it this morning just to prepare me for this interview, but I was missing some of the ingredients. But I'm going to actually do it because you're stunning. And we're always inspired by other people. And obviously you have research in this, knowledge in this, and it's something you share with others because of the confidence you have in it. And so I definitely want to try this smoothie. I have my own smoothies, but I'm going to try this one and see how I like it. I'm sure I'll notice.
You meditate, love?
I'm so proud of myself. Let me just tell you, because meditation for me has been a struggle. Because I do so many things for my morning routine, and I usually felt a little rushed. But this year was finally my commitment to myself, and it's literally giving myself a gift to meditate every morning. So I do it, and I've done it every day. I think I missed one day this year so far, but I do breath work and meditation. Um, and I'm just enjoying the journey, like sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I meditated, if I got into this meditative state, but I'm letting go of what it needs to be and just
Yes.
letting it be. And I think that's advice for kind of anybody, because especially when you start something new, you try to think, oh, am I getting there? Is this perfect? And we just have to let it be what it is. And I think eventually you'll flow into what it needs to be. That's what I'm kind of telling myself.
Well, it's true, and it's a practice, and it unfolds. But when I see you, you have such, big heart energy, and I
Oh,
see in your eyes, there's a light, and it wants to grow, and it's going to grow. And
I love
you
that.
see right into it, and it's going to grow the more you connect in with your beautiful soul. Because you're beautiful here, right? You don't need to work here. You need to work here.
Oh, totally. I honestly, I think there's nothing better than connecting with yourself and feeling
Totally.
that, like, and really just accepting yourself as you are. Nothing needs to be. And you talked about this perfectly imperfect, but we are perfect. And I believe more we're connected to ourselves, everything outside of us, we judge less. We
Totally.
don't
Oh
need
my
it to
God.
be a
Oh
certain
my
way.
God.
Yeah. And it actually, I'm coming that's coming through me. I think, like, anytime I notice myself when I judge things, and I think a lot of people
Totally.
aren't even aware when they judge things. So yeah, there's so much, I think, to be found in meditation. And that's probably the one common denominator between all my guests I've interviewed, almost 100 now, that
Yeah.
meditation is number one, and everybody swears by it. So I committed. The person that really inspired me was Mark Divine. He talks about box breathing. If you haven't heard of him, he's been meditating. I don't know if it's been 30 years or something, but he's a former SEAL, and he just shares, like, meditation in general. That's how he became a SEAL. And just,
Wow.
it really got him connected to where he wanted to go in life. And it just was so inspiring. Everybody that I've interviewed has been so inspiring. So I'm telling myself it's a gift to myself every morning.
Yeah, it is. And that will, open up the door to so much. So you try some of our meditations too, love, over on the app.
I will. Awesome. I
If
will.
you want to sit in for a circle as our guest, let them know. We do the circle once a month where everybody talks. They're on Zoom, but then there's daily tips, and there's a monthly meditation and a theme. So our theme in February was self-care, and in March it's developing intuition.
Beautiful. And I will definitely plug that in the show notes
Thank
as
you.
well. So, Kimberly, thank you. Such an
Oh my
honor.
God.
You are so beautiful.
Well, so are you, and I hope we can meet in person one day. You're in LA, so we have events when things open back up. We'll be sure to invite you, and we'll
Thank
connect.
you.
But this
Thank
weird
you,
time,
lovely.
get through this
So
weird time.
crazy. I know.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so much, my
so
love.
much.
Mwah. See you later.